Hello, everybody. It's the No Name Cinema Society. We are back after only, I think, 9 days. And you might notice I'm in a little different space. I'm in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, as I promised. I said it would be. I'm in a hotel here. We're shooting a movie here. We're in the middle of prep. Oh, and I'm still with my glasses on. See, I knew there was something. I just literally landed in my hotel. If you've been watching the vlogs, you know what a crazy 24 hours I've had. I just got to my hotel like 30 minutes before the show. I'm mostly prepared, but I'm unshaven, which I know some of you are really against. Before we get on with that, this is the 34th meeting of the No Name Cinema Society, and I no longer have my San Francisco hat. If you've been watching the vlogs, you know that they lost yesterday, and so I had to retire the hat for at least for a little while, and I'm going with the fictional baseball team, the New York Knights. All right, so I've got a couple guys with me here. My usual co-hosts are with me, and let's start with from Brooklyn, New York, Jay Money. How you doing, elitist?
Good. I didn't shave either, so you shouldn't feel too bad about this.
That's a fair point. I've also got our last place fantasy football team over here in Davy Joe. Dave, how you feel about your team this year?
I didn't realize I needed 2 quarterbacks, so I'm gonna lose every game this year. Maybe next year.
It's the same as last year that you didn't realize you needed 2 quarterbacks.
I had some last year. I don't know. Next year, I'll keep it in mind.
I mean, you could try this year. You had the number 1 pick in the draft.
No, I know, but I can't find. There are no available quarterbacks.
So anyway, I have had a crazy 24 hours, as you know. So. For this so I went and went down to the hotel bar and they sold me a 6-pack. So I've got it's cheap 6-pack. I've got Miller Genuine Draft MGD Twist Off.
Yeah.
Dave Money, what are you rolling with tonight?
I'm drinking a little wine. I got a what do I have here? I've got a Malbec. I've got a nice dry red wine.
Okay, not too bad. And Jay Money, you got Fresca.
Wait, me or
oh, I'm sorry, Davy Joe. You got Fresca?
I may grab a fizzy water out of the fridge
Nice.
Later on. Right now I am staying drink.
You're back in Charlotte.
Yeah. I was here last time, wasn't I? I think.
You are. But I mean, like, I want to point out that we are all on the East Coast.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Eastern time zone, anyway. For the first time in a long time, we're all in the same time zone. All right, let me set our alarm here. That's how unprepared I am. All right, let's see how this works. I'm gonna make it one less. All right, here we go. This is are you guys ready to talk about our second consecutive Edgar Ramirez movie?
Yeah, this is true. I was kind of surprised to find that out the hard way, but yeah, let's go into it.
That was him. That was him. Yeah. All right.
He's our new man, our new man of the month. Anyway, so here is the full schedule for the evening. Starting right now, we're going to talk about The Girl on the Train. Then followed by our indie spotlight, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, continuing our discussion of films from 2011. Then we're going 90s for Forrest Gump, the classic of the evening, Best Picture winner from 1994. And I don't know how much Davey we have. I don't know whether Davey's there, but I think we have Davey's diatribe. We're going to try top 5, and I'm going to do another second run movie because these guys refuse to, more or less. Is that about right?
Yeah, that seems about right.
Nice. Look forward to
Davey Joe, I'm so excited for you to watch some of these movies in your list.
Oh, I should look at the list.
I feel like I'm making headway here. That's a good start. I'll go with that. All right. I'm also, like these guys know, I wasn't able to print out my script tonight because I'm on the road. So I'm like literally like, I forgot. Oh, I know what I want to do. Okay. All right. Ready for a, hey, picked the wrong. See, I knew this. I know. So I've got photos, my JPEGs that I sent to J Money. I didn't delete those, so I've got 2 files here. So
yeah, it's tricky.
First show, I'm just stumbling into it, and then by the end, I'm on like a rhythm. Time. So Rachel here is an alcoholic who has spiraled even further out of control after her husband left her for another more sober woman. To cope, Rachel becomes obsessed with a gorgeous woman she sees frequently from the Metro North train on her daily commute to Manhattan. When this woman goes missing, Rachel takes it upon herself to get to the bottom of the case, but only manages to throw the spotlight on herself as the new prime suspect. Only then does she realize she doesn't remember where she was at the time of the girl's disappearance, and she worries that she actually might have something to do with it. So what? Where does that? Is that a good summary, guys? Like, what do you think?
Yeah,
that nails it.
Okay.
That covers the entire movie. Good night, everybody.
I think, for what it's worth, I think these guys have stopped listening to my summary. They totally drift off. And I just want to check and see how it's going. Guys, we got tons of viewers right now, and you're not giving me what I need. And I'm just sort of stumbling through this show. What?
You're doing great.
What did you just say? Did you say something? I don't know.
Yeah, see? I like positive reinforcement, though. I appreciate that. Take a sip of that wine. J Money, you're up first for opening thoughts.
Okay, well, the thing is, this was a truly ridiculous movie, and that would have been fine. It would have been great if it had really embraced the ridiculousness of its own self, but it seemed to take itself a little bit too seriously in the middle.
Okay, long opening thought, but we'll get back to that. Davey Joe?
It's funny because my opening thought is third act issues.
Okay. I guess, so we'll have to unpack that as well. It's interesting because in this particular movie, what I was not aware is that I have a former colleague that has a sizable role in the film, not super sizable, but I didn't realize that she was in it, and so I might need to dial it back a little bit. With that said, I think it's fair to say I'm surprised this was a best-selling book. I found this to be a pretty awful movie, and that's dialing it back. So I don't know where that leaves us for now, and I certainly don't know what Davy's scale.
I think it's something cheese-based. I feel like Davy's scale is cheese-based, but I could be wrong.
What is that? What is that? What is that one? I don't know what that is.
There somewhere.
I guess so. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't too corny or anything. All right, so Davy Joe, you had issues with the third act. So tell me about. My first note was screenplay as well, screenplay issues. So why don't we start with you?
All right, so basically, there's the movie's a mystery, and once mystery is kind of out there, once we know who the bad guy is, there's no payoff. I mean, it's just kind of a weak ending. Like, they could have made it into a real thriller. It could have been exciting. Could have been kind of scary. And it was just kind of blasé to me. It was just kind of, oh, okay. Definitely, I think it thought it was dramatic and it thought it was exciting, but it could have been so much more. That's my biggest problem with the film.
I'm going to translate. I'm going to translate that for those of you who don't speak Neanderthal. The issue is, I think what he's trying to say is that there's a twist. There's twists late in the movie and this is my issue, that are like a good mystery feels like when it surprises you, but then when you go back, you see the pieces that lead up to it. And this movie does not have that. When the twist happens, there's nothing in the movie that leads up to it. It's completely contrived in that regard, and it's like a sucker punch to some degree, in a bad way. I think that it's you don't want to be obvious about your twist, but you also don't want it to come out of nowhere. Does that make sense, J Money?
Yeah, that makes sense. Although I think that you guys are almost already giving this movie too much credence to begin with. I mean, I think the movie and the source material itself, it's supposed to be kind of pulpy. This is basically like an elevated Lifetime original movie. And I understand what you're saying, but I also don't think that that's what this movie was about. I don't think the movie was about, pulling serious twist punches or taking itself into, new territory like that.
I mean, that doesn't mean it, like it shouldn't like aim to have like a solid structure.
Yeah, well, it really depends. I guess I agree with you, although I come to a different conclusion, because I don't know if it should have had a more serious structure. I think it should have gone looser. I think it should have embraced.
I mean, I guess that's. I mean, like, that's just like different creative choices. Like, I feel like it had. Clearly, like, you look at something like Gone Girl and how successful it was as a film. I mean, like, it had a lot of similar stuff going on. Now, similar to Hitchcock stuff, it sort of reveals its secret midway through, which I sometimes like works for Gone Girl and for some of the Hitchcock stuff. But anyway, I think that I think in this case they purposefully led you away from what the twist was, and it was like it felt cheap, it felt contrived. To Davey's point, like it didn't feel like much of a payoff because it was like so out of left field to me. And it's like a certain character like flipped, you know what I mean? Like, and I thought it was like cheap, like it was a cheap storytelling.
Oh yeah,
and
it's definitely cheap storytelling. I absolutely agree with that, certainly.
So sorry, yeah, Davey Joe.
I was just gonna say, did you have issues with perspective? I mean,
oh my God, Davey Joe, I love you.
Yeah.
That was the very next point on my list. The multiple perspectives diffused the mystery, I think. I mean, we go ahead, Davey.
No, it diffused. That's a really good point. But also, it seemed like, I mean, she was kind of narrating it, but then there was sections that weren't like that, and then I don't know. I didn't. It made it hard to kind of settle into the thing. Like you didn't know who's. I mean, I guess there are like actual titles that tell you like who it's about, but not necessarily whose perspective it is.
Right, but Rachel had voiceover; the other two didn't.
Yeah, isn't that not strange to you?
It's strange. It's completely strange, and just sloppy. And I mean, furthermore, I mean, when we talk about we've talked about Hitchcock before. When we talked about, I think it was Vertigo when it came up, we talked about limited perspective versus general perspective, and it'll come up again because we got more Hitchcock coming, I think, in 2017. But as I fix my hair, but yeah. So I mean, like it's a big problem. Because for a mystery, I feel like you need to have a limited perspective. You need to like find things out along with the hero, and to have these three protagonists for all intents and purposes, it really felt like any sort of mystery. They had to like force the mystery because you were seeing everything, so they had to like force situations where you didn't necessarily see what was going on when you normally would have, So that was frustrating with me. I will make the point that I do think the multiple perspectives, there's a 2006 indie film called The Dead Girl, which does an interesting job of, you know it, David Joe, you're nodding?
No, I've heard of it though.
It has different perspectives on one mystery, but it has like multiple, like 10 or like little vignettes all related to the same crime. And that's kind of interesting. Maybe not 10. I think maybe it's like more like 6 or 7. Anyway, J Money, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why it happened. It's kind of it's a conceit that really works better, I think, in terms of a book. It's the kind of thing where I think it will function better if you're going to actually break it up into chapters that you're reading and you get into the minds of the characters by default. In this case, in a lot of ways, there's really one character that kind of carries the movie all the way through, and I think that's not just because of her storyline. It's also because I think that she's the only one that's actually really putting any effort into being in the movie. But even because of that, it felt like the other characters were really kind of sketchy. It felt like they were really just not completely fleshed out.
Completely two-dimensional. I mean, I think that's a script thing, though. I think it keeps in keeping with the story, the section we're talking about screenplay right now, and I think it's a screenplay into. I think that there's characterizations that are two-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, already the story is based on some really sort of broad strokey kind of white waspy women from Westchester, which I think is probably one of the reasons that people were drawn to it to begin with. But like beyond that, there's really only one character in this entire movie that actually has anything even interesting to watch in her, and that's Emily Blunt's character. Everybody else is really just kind of.
You're not talking about my buddy Laura?
Which one was she?
She was the roommate.
Oh yeah, well she was in and out, Yeah,
no, I mean, like honestly, if she were here, she might, maybe not publicly, but say, yeah, I didn't have much to do. She didn't have much to do. And because the character was underwritten. I mean, like she was flat and it's not her fault. And I don't think it's Emily Blunt's fault either.
Most of the other characters are really flat, and it's kind of surprising because I would expect at least the two other sort of female leads in this movie to have been really fleshed out and really added mystery. But they were pretty they were pretty much just there. They were just kind of chewing the scenery at certain points, and they appeared and they disappeared, and they really didn't have much to do or say. Ultimately, they tried to create drama, but it didn't work. It did, there was really nothing that interesting to watch with them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I'm sort of like on the fence about. I mean, I feel like I've seen Rebecca Ferguson in something else, and I don't recall seeing Haley Bennett before. She's gorgeous, but I mean, like, no, I have no real sense of her ability from this movie, and I don't want to say it's a bad performance because I don't think I can really tell. I don't think she's really, given much either way. Like, so there's points where like, she emoted a lot, but I didn't believe it, but I'm not sure that's entirely her fault because I mean, like, the situation did not really ask for me to believe it. So I mean, like, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not. Like I wasn't. There was huge buzz around Emily Blunt on this movie coming in. Like she's had Oscar buzz for months, and I mean, like I don't think her performance worked for me. And when I say Oscar buzz, like within the town, like I think it's like it was the role that was getting the buzz because I don't think she's good. I think she struggled with the alcoholism. I think she's forced overall. And again, I mean, like it's not entirely her fault because we've seen her be great before, but I just don't. And Tate Taylor's directed Oscar-winning performances in the past. I just, like there's what's on the page is so flat. And I mean, like I understand, like just saying she's a drunk and she used to be, have her shit together and all these other things. It's not enough. You need to like, and just saying, oh, her baby made her be drunk. There's more to backstory than that. You know what I mean? Like it just felt like writing attributes on a page and then just expecting it to appear out of thin air instead of really doing the work, whether that's the writer on her. So I mean, like I don't know if you're saying she gave a good performance because I don't think that she did. I actually think that everybody missed it, and that comes on Tate Taylor, I think. Yeah.
I think by far she was the only interesting character. I mean, that doesn't mean that she was a great character. I think she was.
But yeah, I mean, like I have to. But even the VO killed it for me. It's poorly written VO, and so I found it hard to root for.
Again, the minute the movie started and there was VO, I knew it was going to come up again in this conversation.
I mean, like I think if a camera were on me watching this movie, you would see.
I was imagining it.
You were imagining it, Davey Joe. Where are you in this performance issue?
Actually, I thought Emily Blunt was pretty good, and I thought it was kind of a. I'm impressed with it because they just make her look horrible, and they stick the camera right in her face when she's disheveled and her makeup is smeared and stuff, and I think she really kind of pulled it off for me. I mean, she looked like a mess. I mean, she really pulled. She I think
like, that's makeup. I mean, to me, it's about what's going on under the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see it underneath. And like, when she's drunk, I don't feel like she's drunk. I feel like she's an actor playing drunk. I mean, to me, that's a huge difference, and I'm very sensitive to that.
No,
yeah,
I can see that. I thought it worked for me, but I think that sometimes when you're not feeling a movie, it can kind of just poison the whole thing. Yeah, it's just not that great of a movie. Is the problem.
That's true. But I mean, like, it seems like Jay Money likes it more than I even thought he would.
I think it could have been. It had potential to be a really pulpy, enjoyable experience, and it kind of fell flat to me. I mean, Davey Joe is talking about the third act and how it didn't deliver, and I can understand his point. But to me, the second act is really the problem. It just sort of dragged on and on because it took its own BS a little bit too seriously.
I can make some really compelling arguments on how the first act's pretty bad, but
I understand that as well. I totally get that. I mean, for the first 20 or so minutes in the movie, I considered leaving. I really did. I honestly was like, this is going to be awful. And then I sort of got into the pattern of it, and I kind of like went with it. And the other thing for me, I don't know about you guys, and this is getting a little bit off topic, but the audience that I was with really responded to it, and that probably helped.
My ex really liked it that I went with, and I was. She had read the book, and she said it's very true to the book. And it doesn't surprise me that she would read the book. Like a lot of women were interested in this book, but I'm surprised she liked the movie.
Yeah, well, it's a guilty pleasure kind of movie if you're gonna like it, I think.
I want to ask you guys about Rebecca Ferguson. We haven't talked about her, and I feel like I've seen her before. She's like the Alicia Vikander of this year. I mean, I feel like she's like very buzzed about as like the new British thing. What do you? I mean, like again, jury's out on her as far as I'm concerned. Not much to work with. Did you guys have a different impression of her? We haven't brought her up.
No, I don't feel like there was much. Yeah, again, to echo your point, there wasn't really much for her to work with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of she was kind of there in the background a lot.
I mean, she's a super huge, important character. I mean, I would say the second lead in the movie, all things considered, and yet
incredibly flat. There's just really very little, you know, actual depth to her character.
Joke?
Well, her chance to shine is they didn't give her anything. Is the third act when it needed to shift from mystery to thriller, and it never did. I mean, that's when she could have done something. That's when she actually got to be on the screen for an extended period of time, and there was just nothing there for her to do.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, well, a couple things. I mean, like one thing that occurred to me is I wondered if because in Gone Girl, I mean, I wonder if I responded to it differently because of and I'm trying not to give anything away, but the nature of who's ultimately responsible. Like, you know, maybe this felt a little anti-male at times. That maybe, you know, is another thing I didn't respond to.
Maybe.
I mean, like, I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping it's just because the movie's bad, but I'm hoping it's not because I had some sort of like deep down, like, you know, male response to it. But the only other thing, and I think I got a minute left, is 14 seconds, and it's a quick thing. I mean, I think the other thing that Tate Taylor lacked for this movie is perspective. Like, I feel like the movie lacked any real sense of tone. And it's sort of more of an abstract concept, but I mean, like, I don't think it really, like, it had any sort of feelings about the film overall. Didn't have any feelings about the characters or what was going on, and you know what it said about, you know, society in general. Like, I didn't feel like it had, well, depth, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess I would say it's just kind of it's just a simple sort of pulpy story. You know, I guess to me, it's like, I'm not going to fault it for being that way. I'm not going to fault it for being simple. I fault the execution of it. I fault the fact that it ended up not really being satisfying because at times I feel like it just took itself way too seriously. I think that they could have really had fun with this movie if they'd given the chance to. But
yeah, no, that's exactly right.
I mean, like, I don't know if I would have. I mean, like, I think you guys want the fun version. I wanted like a more Gone Girlish, you know, version that you know, I don't know if it took itself seriously, but it was just smarter and executed in a more intelligent, interesting way. Like, just better storytelling, I think.
Well, I think though, if they'd have gone to Gone Girl, that would have been annoying also, because you can't really do that as well. So.
I mean, like, I mean, I see your point, but I'm not saying like replicate Gone Girl, but I'm saying like there's stylistic things that you could have done there, and there are there's just certain ways that you could have told the story, and I just think the characters were more developed in Gone Girl. I mean, the basic storytelling, you know, concepts that Gone Girl used, you know, like, I don't think it needed to be a replica. All right, so I'm going to move on, so we can maybe get started with the indie. Our indie is going to be much more interesting to talk about, I think. It's an indie spotlight. It's called Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene from 2011. And our next current feature is going to be in about a month, because I'm going to work on this feature here in Pennsylvania. It's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Harry Potter's back, everybody, in November 21st. Monday to November 21st at 8 p.m. is when we're going to talk about the next Harry Potter world film. I don't know what they're calling it. And look at this hashtag, NNCS Next. I mean, it's probably always been there, but I don't know. Has anyone ever used that hashtag?
No, I don't think we ever used it, but it's there. If anyone wants to use it, by all means. Go for it.
The legions of fans. It's trending right now. Sure.
Is it really? just by us mentioning it. If there's anything else you guys want to do while you're watching, because you are watching right now, I can see it, is subscribe to our channel, because that's what cool people do, as they may say. And so do that. In the meantime, check our Facebook and Twitter right in about 5 minutes for the link for the next broadcast, which is going to be Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, our indie spotlight for the evening. See you very shortly.